That was a really powerful movie. So I'm going to just ask our speakers, our Q&A people to come up so we can get started on the Q&A. Leslie Manookian, we've been in this fight together since I started. She was in it before me, Leslie Manookian with Health Freedom Defense Fund. What a lot of you don't know is that we were both kind of not very well at the same time. And I was like, you should run Health Freedom Idaho. And she's like, I'm not well enough. You should run Health Freedom Idaho. I'm like, I'm not well enough. You should run it. And now we have both Health Freedom Idaho and Health Freedom Defense Fund, which is super exciting. All right, who else is here? Ron Nate with Idaho Freedom Foundation. You guys, when I was a baby activist, Ron was a legislator, and he was one of the only ones that took the time to have lunch with Sarah and I and give us some instruction on what to do and what not to do. And actually, I have to share this, Ron. Ron was the one who said, if you guys aren't here, we're only hearing from the lobbyists. So you have to be here. That's the only way we know what the people want. That was a real statesman when he was a statesman and now running Idaho Freedom Foundation. Who else? Do we have Dr. Cole here yet? I don't need to say anything else, do I really? A hero, an absolute hero. Sarah Clendenon, are you in here? My partner in Liberty. She's amazing. Doug, I couldn't even see you through the lights. Doug, can we bring Doug in closer? Doug Cameron, you recognize him from the movie? Okay. Doug was really instrumental in helping us to get the Medical Freedom Act passed. He was there. He was taking action, making phone calls, doing everything that he could to get that passed for Idaho. Thank you so much, Doug. Thank you. Dawn and Brian with We the Patriots, are you guys here? Here comes Brian Festa. So glad you guys are here. Brianne, Dressen, everybody.
My question is about blood donation, blood transfusions. What do those of us that are not vaccinated, how are we supposed to get clean blood?
First, I hope you don't need a transfusion. And the honest answer is you can't find what you don't look for. And so the answer is we don't know. This is the embarrassment of the medical establishment, the Red Cross, government, regulatory agencies. Nobody knows who's making abundant spike protein. Nobody knows who isn't. Nobody knows when there's an off switch for those that did receive a shot. Nobody knows. Is the blood supply safe? I honestly don't know. And the Red Cross, maybe behind the scenes, they're looking at it. Have they come forward with it? No. There are multiple groups that have formed, Safe Blood and others around the world. If you need an elective procedure, then you can pre-donate before your procedure to yourself, which I would highly recommend. But you know, this is the unfortunate cover-up. These amazing people who did volunteer and were injured and are still suffering. You know, this entire documentary is a testament to the tenacity of humanity to find truth and to tell the truth. And I want to thank Brianne. I want to thank Matthew Guthrie, Mickey Willis, for spending the years on the project to bring these things to light. But the answer to your question is nobody knows because they're not looking. Now, I know Jay Bhattacharya at NIH. We're working on some grants behind the scenes to do all the research that should have been done before all of this came forward. So, number one, try not to need a transfusion. And number two, if you do need one and are having an elective procedure, donate your own. And number 3, if it's life and death, the blood supply is probably, and this is just conjecture, probably safer now than it was during the peak of the vaccine campaign a couple of years ago, because so few people are receiving these. The amount of potentially threatening clotting spike protein is probably a lot lower in the blood supply than it was.
Before the next question, I was going to tell them what they can do legally if they're going to need a procedure. Okay. So I'm Brian Festa, I'm Vice President of We the Patriots USA, and I'm a civil rights and constitutional law attorney. If you need a transfusion and you know ahead of time you're going to have surgery and you're likely going to need it, you can contact us. I don't want to speak for Leslie, but maybe you can contact her organization as well, because we do the same kind of work. And we will see what we can do about getting you a religious accommodation, because Jehovah's Witnesses for years, many years, have been able to use their own blood. It's called autologous. Okay. I'll let him speak about that, but there's a procedure where you can filter your own blood and you can get an accommodation. Now, of course, in an emergency life or death situation, you don't call me, call 911. I'm not going to be able to help in that situation. But if you know ahead of time, and especially if the volume of blood likely to be needed is not going to be great, then you can opt for that because of the use of aborted fetal tissue and other reasons that you might object to the presence of the substance matter in the COVID shots being in the blood. So again, it's not something that has really been tried much, but it is an option. So if you know ahead of time you're going to have surgery, you can contact, I've passed out flyers in there, so you have my information, but it's wethepatriotsusa.org. And again, I don't want to speak for her, but Leslie was going to come up to the microphone anyway. So maybe she can tell you about how her organization, Health Freedom Defense Fund, can help you as well, because she also has a public interest law firm.
I actually wanted to say something different on this, which is that we need to change the law in the state, and we're working on that. Right now, as it stands, if you donate your blood to the blood banks in Idaho, 80% of it is sold out of state. It is a huge business, and this is why the system doesn't want us bypassing it or using our own blood or our family member's blood or somebody else who's not vaccinated. So we need a legislative answer to this. Right now, the vested interests are huge with the Red Cross and the big hospital systems. It is something that was addressed or attempted to be addressed last year. It's going to take some time, but there are people working on it.
So we had a baby that we knew had a heart defect and needed surgery. We found out that in our state, it's state by state dependent. I'm not sure if you were aware of that. So in Idaho, Miste has actually coordinated a blood drive for our baby, so we didn't have to use whatever blood was there. So we found out it was state by state dependent. And ironically, when we were in California, of all places, Stanford, we got that directed blood donation. So there was volunteers there. We put our network out there, and we were able to find people that were unvaccinated. But it's still really emotional because it was a really big deal. But in Idaho, you cannot do that, is my understanding.
That's why we have to change it.
Yeah, so I'm happy to help you with that.
First off, clearly the lies have been exposed, the NIH, the CDC. Now the big question is, why the PSYOPs? Why? What was all of it for? What was the mass compliance operation for?
You need a different panel. Fauci.
Well, everybody thinks, it was a pandemic. Well, yeah, there was a virus, but this was run by the Department of Defense. The entire operation was a DoD operation. And what we need to change and alter is the ability of our government to propagandize us, which is the Smith-Mundt Act, We need to repeal the Smith-Mundt Act, which is propaganda on the American people, which was passed, modified under Obama. However, it was a Republican House that passed it. So we need to change the law. And why the PSYOP? Well, look at how well the government knows it can control its people now. Obviously not this room, but the majority of the people that are still asleep. I was in an airport last week, I'll be in one tomorrow, and there's still people wearing masks, and I just laugh. Well, I actually have more pity, but it's a sign of how unwell we are psychologically as a society. And I mean, this is a great question you bring up, but we do need to doubt everything, be a skeptic of everything, and not be susceptible to propaganda. And, we saw how easily it happened. Great question. Why? Well, you test the waters of how much you can control, and what do you do the next time? Thank you.
Thanks. I'd like to add to it. First of all, I want to thank all the groups for coming together and putting this together. Our team and Health Freedom Idaho and Health Freedom Defense Fund and We the Patriots, all of them, and whoever I'm leaving out. But React 19, that this came together. I didn't think it was going to come together at one point, but it all did, and it was a lot of effort there, so much appreciated. The question about why the PSYOP, three words keep ringing in my head from the whole episode and from the movie, and that is safe and effective. A phrase we use around the Idaho Freedom Foundation, from time to time as we're talking with each other is, we don't distrust our government enough. And we see it as we do our analysis and research. Government makes mistakes. Government doesn't trust the people. Government tries to cover things up sometimes. And I don't mean just elected officials. I mean bureaus and agencies. We see it all the time. Bad decisions are made. Bad actions are made. They try and cover it up. They try and conceal information. We have to work like dogs to get that information. And it is so sensitive with this topic because healthcare is so personal. Your health freedom is so personal. But I want to put to you, so is education. So are your taxes. So is everything. All of this freedom stuff is important. Health freedom is super important because it is so personal and affects lives and families so directly that it's just frustrating. I don't want to answer many of these questions. I want to hear from Bree. I want to hear from Doug that these personal experiences are so important to us. We need to make sure we get it right. Transparency is important. Accountability is super important. And it takes all the folks working together to make this work. So thank you.
Okay, I'm going to go out on a limb and tell you what I really think about this question because I think it's so important. No vaccine has ever been proven safe or effective. That's a fact. And the reason I can say that is because there's no vaccine on the schedule today that has been tested against a true inert placebo in order to prove that it, one, works, and two, is safe. That's a fact. Vaccines have been investigated for decades as a means of controlling fertility. Vaccines have been laced with all sorts of chemicals like HCG, human chorionic gonadotropin. That's the pregnancy hormone that women's bodies make when they get pregnant in order that our bodies does not reject the new baby that's growing inside of us. In Kenya, in Mexico, the Philippines, the World Health Organization has distributed vaccines that are laced with HCG and only administered to women of childbearing age. That's not an accident, friends. On top of that, we've known since the late 70s, when the pharmaceutical industry was being sued repeatedly and juries were awarding millions and sometimes tens of millions of dollars to victims, that many vaccines are actually causing neurological impairment and even death in babies. And that's why Congress passed the National Childhood Vaccine Injury Act of 1986. My point is, what happened to Doug and what happened to Bree has been going on for decades. It didn't just start with COVID. It's been going on forever. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is not to frighten you, but to empower you. Because you know what? Each and every one of you is responsible for your life and for every decision you make. And you must never, ever give away your power or defer to someone who is in authority just because they say so. This whole situation with vaccines, people have to think about this. Number one, there's the potential that a sick populace is a controllable populace. And there's another aspect. If a pharmaceutical company is going to develop a drug, it treats a very small addressable market. But vaccines are given to healthy people, and the addressable market is potentially 7 or 8 billion people. So it is a, business person's dream come true to have a product mandated by the government for which the manufacturer has no liability when it causes harm. There are all these other issues as well. I'm going to end it there. I really want to hear from Bree and Doug. In fact, I was just asking Bree how many symptoms she still has, and she told me she wouldn't have been here if this was 2 days ago.
I actually forgot to have Dr. Judy go up there. Dr. Judy Mikovits is in the house. Oh, oh!
I have a question. There's probably some in this room that did take the vaccine, and many of us have children or others that we love that took the vaccine. If they haven't suffered any side effects to date, did they dodge a bullet? Is there a sleeping giant? Is there something we should be watching for? Because that horrified me.
Do you want to go sad? I'll go high, low, high.
Okay.
So obviously, I'm one of the people that have this product coursing through my veins all the time. And my husband, as you know, he got it too. He was mandated by his job to get it. This is something that a lot of people, and I think a lot of people that are not in this room, this is, to me, and this is my opinion, you may think differently, but this is why we are met with so much confrontation, is because when we open up the possibility that they too could be subject to something that could come back and bite them later on, that, it makes it personal for them. I've been met with that with my own family, people that actually came in and carried me in from my bed to the bathroom and back, and they still have such a hard time with what I'm doing now to help other people. But through this experience, I've seen the people that have been hit the hardest, like Doug, the people that got hit the hardest at the beginning. Unfortunately, there was a lot of death. Those of us that survived, we're grateful that we survived most days. There are a couple of risks that we've seen through our advocacy at React 19. There's 36,000 people that have been injured by the COVID vaccines that are under our registry. There obviously is a spike in cancers. That's not a myth. It's something that has been repeated and reported over and over and over. It's something that we're watching. And hopefully with the new health secretary, we can get some real research going to address that. There is a risk for sudden heart failure. There was a study out of, was it Japan? That shows that 2 years after vaccination, your heart can just suddenly stop. So my message to people is, if you got it and you survived, awesome. Please stop getting them.
So there was a large Zogby poll a couple of years ago that showed out of 100 Americans after the shots, 15% had a new medical condition. That's millions of people. But here's the good news. That means 85% didn't. So also a colleague of mine, Dr. Vibeke Manish out of Denmark, and Schmeling and one other author did a large Danish study. And it showed essentially that about a third of the shots seemed to be like placebo. Another 2/3-ish had just mild side effects at first. And then there was about 5 to 6% that had severe reactions. So a lot of people seem to have dodged a bullet. And there was an inconsistent manufacturing. And this has been proven by, I was doing a webinar, that was a few minutes late, with Kevin McKernan, who showed the DNA contamination of the RNA products. And they found certain lots were actually okay and not hyper-contaminated. But there were many lots. You can go to howbadismybatch.com if you got a shot and want to see. Don't ignore symptoms is the answer. This is a gene therapy product. It is not a vaccine. If you look at Moderna's SEC filing in the spring of 2020, it's registered as a gene therapy. And most gene therapy adverse events don't show up in the first couple of years. We're just getting into that 5-year window when you start to track the severe reactions and or excess mortality, which is already up anyway. But there are a lot of conditions that have not manifested that could still manifest. It's usually year 10 to 15, unfortunately. So again, the majority of people, if you didn't have a reaction at all, or you were in one of those long stadium lines, where you're in the hot sun and all the vials are melting and you just got sludge, you probably dodged a bullet. But at the same time, from a vigilance point of view, if it were actually registered as a gene therapy product, which it was, and fell under the actual FDA regulation, they would be monitoring for 15 years. So we don't know is the honest answer. Why do you think they wanted to hide the data for 55 years? So hope that helps.
Brian Cole, you're my guy.
Hey, Craig.
I would trust my life with you. And you did refer me to somebody in Alabama that everybody in the audience ought to know about, Dr. Jordan Vaughn. This is a clotting disease. It's got snake venom clotting and anti-clotting properties that ruin our blood. I've got a little blood clot in my leg. It's getting handled thanks to Ryan sending me over to Jordan Vaughn. He says he's the clot guy. He's treated about 1,000 patients. And just been on what you set me onto first, turmeric, fish oil, and nattokinase. So with the nattokinase, and he's embellished on that with about another handful of horse pills. But I've been doing it 1.5 years, and everything's looking better in the vein. It's getting flow through it. Where it used to have a 1-foot long clot, now it's getting flow.
Wow.
Yes.
That's awesome.
So, and I've helped you guys get around before. You're all carte blanche. You need to do some travel and let me know. And the other issue is, why can't we just be masters of the obvious? If I wrote a prescription to a pregnant woman, I am scared poopless, and I need their doctor to write it for me. I'm a dentist, okay. So, but nonetheless, that's one of the biggest lawsuits. Pregnant woman has a problem. You did it with what you gave her, some aspirin or something. It's horrible. And here they're carte blanche giving it across to pregnant women. And you were telling me about all the, what do you call it? Miscarriages. Yeah. So anyway, and now the spike protein assay, Jordan Vaughn told me spike protein assay can't get done in America. Are we still in that problem where we can't get what we need to do to get real honest health care? You have to go overseas to get a spike protein assay?
The short answer is yes. I mean, that's part of the reason, those of us who were doing the research, out of our own pockets early on, were attacked so viciously by the system. And it's because we were starting to show those things. The spike assay, yeah, we were developing it in my lab. We were working on it. And that's when all the, false legal attacks started from St. Luke's and others. And thank you, Dr. David Pate and Idaho Statesman. But yeah, there's only one assay in the world right now, and you have to go to Germany for it in terms of the spike assay. Yeah.
You were with FLCCC. They changed their name to
the Independent Medical Alliance, imahealth.org.
Hook on that. You can make a donation to Ryan Cole.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Craig.
My question is I work at the senior center in Nampa. I actually volunteer, and I've been there. I came from Israel. I was there during the pandemic, and I came actually here for healthcare because I denied the vaccination and the masks, and I became persona non grata in Israel, and I would not be treated by the healthcare system. So I came here to Idaho, up in Pocatello, was treated there, and went down to 92 pounds and made it here to doctors here who have helped me, naturopaths and different kinds of blood doctors, et cetera. I'm now 120 pounds, and I've had great help from many physicians here, naturopaths, and clinics. But at the senior center where I volunteer, I'm seeing in the 1 year that I volunteered there, and I did go there and start volunteering at 98 pounds, I watched so far these seniors deteriorate, and seen a lot of, heard from 50-year-olds, 2 women in my card group that I play there. I sit and mingle with these people, and I'm watching them go into walkers and get the shaking and the cancers. I've seen that, and they have talked about the batches that they got, and they do know, and they feel helpless of what do they do. And a lot of them are just now starting to speak out for their family members. So my question is there going to be some kind of support groups locally for these people who are going to who are now realizing, or let's just say accepting the fact that they are vaccine injured? Is there anything locally that's going to happen to help these individuals? Because they're asking me now, because they know the situation that I came from, what can I offer to them? What kind of information can I give to them?
So over at React 19, we have support, emotional, our mission is to provide physical, emotional, and financial support for people that have been harmed by the COVID vaccines. We have chapters in almost every state. Doug obviously is a big lead to support and provide support for people here in Idaho. I'm just one state down in Utah. And so, the Intermountain West is near and dear to our heart. We do have a lot of really incredible leaders that have been walking and rolling through this process for the last 4 going on 5 years. And we're all more than happy to help people, especially with the physical part is incredibly challenging, as you guys saw. It's very hard. The emotional part is just as challenging, if not more.
I have one thing to add to that answer. I would encourage you to join the Health Freedom Idaho Facebook group and get involved with that community, because there's a lot of good discussion there. And then also, depending on who their providers might be, I had the privilege of working for Miste's husband's clinic, the Karlfeldt Center in Meridian. And a lot of the people that came through that I met, patients were severe stage 4 cancers, had all been vaccinated with the COVID vaccine. And I watched. It was amazing to watch. They would sit together. There's a big room there at the Karlfeldt Center where they all get IVs and treatments together. And the community in that room was amazing. And they would connect with each other. And I saw so many patients there who were exchanging phone numbers, addresses. They came from all over the country to come to the Karlfeldt Center and get treatment. And that community was amazing.
My question is there something on the website, or are there physicians that are available? Like, I need a neurologist and a new primary care after mine was fired because he did not support vaccination at the hospitals pre-surgery, but it was under a different guise. Anyway, my question is, where do I find a physician that's going to acknowledge my issues and help me navigate that?
React 19 has a network of over 600 physicians. There's some of them, you can find them on our website that are publicly listed, but as Laura DeMary, who's like an incredible, she helped put this together, and she's also like a major lead for us with our advocacy program. Our advocates have access to an entire other database that's private for patients that have been quietly telling us who publicly will document and appropriately document your medical condition without the politics that like Joel Walscott got from his neurologist. Neurology is one of the hardest specialists for us to find. And so if any of you come in contact with any specialists that are common sense at all, please let us know. Email React19 so we can put it on the list and start tracking how they're diagnosing patients. There's an incredible neurologist in Texas. Her name is Suzanne Gazda, and she sees patients by cash. You do have to go down there in person for the first visit, but we have taken like ALS patients, people with progressive early onset dementia, POTS, dysautonomia, everything in between. And she's made profound differences in their ability to get help. And immunology is another one. If you can't find a good neurologist to document your condition, you can always step back and get immunology to do the exact same thing. And actually, I don't have a good neurologist on my team. I have a phenomenal immunologist that's tracking everything, and I'm able to access anything that I need from them.
I was going to just confirm what Brianne said. They're building a great network. IMAhealth.org is building a great network. And ironically, she stated the same neurologist I was thinking of. Dr. Gazda is phenomenal. And is she on the new ACIP committee or on the subcommittee research? ACIP subcommittee. Yeah, ACIP subcommittee. In addition to that, continue badgering your doctor and waking them up. And be kind, but at the same time, there are more that are waking up that aren't acknowledging what everything was publicly, but they're seeing it. You can't not see what happened at this point. So be honest with your doctor and just say, hey, do you think it's the vaccine? And eventually we'll tip the tide of people acknowledging the mistake that society made.
Thank you. Thanks for coming. My question is a little different. In Europe, how has the medical community and the governments there reacted to this post-COVID-19 vaccine regimen and data? Has it differed? What light can you shed on what's happened in Europe?
Having been to Europe many, many times in the last couple of years, and I'm going there next month to a big international European meeting, you think it's bad here, and you think what we went through is bad. It's hard to find. You have to go to the natural healers, which I recommend anyway against allopathic medicine anymore. But you have to really have kind of a whisper network. The Europeans cracked down harder than we did, but they protested harder than we did too. I have a colleague who led rallies of 80 to 100,000 people in the streets of Austria. And I was thinking, well, here we are, land of the free, home of the brave, and we'd all be out in the streets protesting. We weren't. And there were huge rallies in multiple countries, which is another example that we've become too complacent in this phenomenal constitutional republic that we're watching disintegrate. The health issues, their regulatory agencies, the EMA, European Medicines Agency, they know the problems, they know the genetic contaminations, they know everything, and they keep burying it. So I would say we're a step ahead of them. Plus, we still have supposedly one thing here they don't have, and that's free speech. Thank you.
Yes. Sorry, this is tall person, Mike. I do want to say, if you're interested in hearing the perspectives of Europeans, we interviewed several of them during our 6th annual Vaccine Safety Awareness Marathon last weekend. We do it every year. We've been doing it for 6 years now, and we interview people from all over the world. In fact, you have to be invited next year. I think most of the people here are invited every year and have been on before, but you. It's an online event. It's virtual, and we do 24 hours straight. All over the world. We had people from France, we had people from England, Israel, New Zealand, all over the place, and obviously a lot of people from the United States. But what they do say is exactly what you just said. We don't have free speech. And what they were really jealous of this year when I talked to them, as opposed to in past years, was Bobby Kennedy. They said, we don't have anyone like Robert F. Kennedy Jr.
I just wanted to add, so I want to give you guys a little bit of ammo. So you know how everyone's freaking out about the new COVID vaccine recommendations? In Europe and other places in the world, they have, for several years now, have restricted access to the COVID vaccines to their younger population and to pregnant women. So while everyone's freaking out here, like everyone's going to die because they're not able to get their boosters. We are just falling in line with the rest of the world. As far as healthcare, internationally, we have a partnership with 20 other countries that have organizations just like us that are founded by people that have been harmed by vaccines for people harmed by vaccines. The healthcare is atrocious internationally. Socialized healthcare has people coming across the borders from Canada in huge numbers. I can tell you, it's at least twice a month I get notice that somebody from Europe has gone to the suicide pods in Switzerland. And in Canada, instead of getting actual basic healthcare, I'm talking simple documentation, even an antihistamine, low-dose naltrexone, hydroxychloroquine, they literally are being given assisted suicide. And I'm talking 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds. It's a crisis, and it's just on the other side of the border. And this is something that we all need to be aware of because it's happening just to the neighbors to the north.
I think it's 50 or 60,000 people in Canada.
64,000.
64,000 have availed themselves of the medically assisted suicide in Canada. Yeah.
Yeah, and they give it the name MAID.
Yeah, it's called MAID.
Yeah.
I forget what's
Medical assistance in dying.
in dying. Yeah.
Good evening, folks. Thank you for coming out tonight. My name is Lucas Kaler. I'm the state representative, one of the state representatives from District 11 in Caldwell. And I wanted to touch real quickly as a point of information for everybody here tonight, going back to the original question that we had, and I forget exactly who that was. They asked about the labeling of blood and how do I get clean blood. And Leslie, you said that there is a legislative solution that needs to come up with here. House Bill 131 that was sponsored by Representative Chris Bruce did exactly that. It would have required that any blood that was donated to in the state would be labeled. The vaccine status would have been annotated on the bag with the blood in it. And that anybody who was wanting to request a certain type of blood, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say probably clean, unvaccinated blood, that they had a right to do that. And that bill passed the House overwhelmingly, 53-17, and then it went over to the Senate where it promptly died in the Senate Health and Welfare Committee. So,
is that Julie Van Orden?
This bill will be coming back again legislative session of 2026. I will make sure of that, and I'm sure Chris Bruce will also be on board. And to my friends with Health Freedom Idaho, we're going to partner up and make sure that the message gets out. So when this bill actually gets back into Senate Health and Welfare Committee, we can apply sufficient pressure through emails and phone calls to demand that this get a hearing and get through and get to the floor of the Senate.
Yes, let's go. And I want to add to that, talking about legislation, We the Patriots USA has been working for several years to have federal legislation that we are planning to introduce in upcoming months. Speaking about health status, as you just mentioned, it's absolutely ridiculous in this country in 2025 that you can be labeled, you can be, the anti-vaxxer label that they love to throw on us. But more importantly, you could lose your job. You can be kicked out of school. You can be refused medical care. That needs to stop. That should have never happened in the first place. It needs to stop. And while we need to do things state by state, we also need a bill that will completely stop that across the nation. And we already have existing an act. Brian, would you like to come up and add to that portion about our act?
Oh, the draft bill, you mean?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're working with Stube and Senator Johnson and many others. I'll let you finish that.
So we love Ron Johnson. We love Ron Johnson. We love our friends in this in Congress. We have a few of them. There's not a lot of them, but there are a few. All right. And Greg Stube's one of them. So we have drafted a bill to amend the Civil Rights Act. The Civil Rights Act of 1964, as you know, many of you know, prohibits discrimination on the basis of race, color, sex, national origin. But we are adding to it, and religion. Let me not forget that, because that's where most of our cases are based on, religion. We are adding to it health status. And that would include vaccination status. And that would include your acceptance or your refusal of any medical product. So, Misty, there are people, as you know, that want to ban what your husband does, that don't want people to have the right to do alternative treatments. Insurance companies won't cover it. Well, guess what? If this is changed under federal law, this would not just be in the employment context, folks. This should be in schools, in retail businesses, in colleges, in employment, yes, as well, in hospitals and clinics. You cannot discriminate against someone on the basis of their health status, and we have defined health status as your acceptance or refusal of a medical product, including vaccination. We list a whole bunch of definitions in there, but basically that would make it just as illegal as discriminating against someone on the basis of your race or your religion or your sex or anything like that. And why is this important? Well, because the infrastructure is already there. So it's not like we'd have to create whole new agencies and spend billions of federal dollars to implement it. You already have the EEOC, okay, which I worked with closely in my years in state government as a human rights attorney back east. I know how it works. The money's already there, okay? So the problem becomes, and when you get a lot of pushback, is when you're trying to create a whole new bill out of thin air. No, the Civil Rights Act has been there for a long, long time, for decades, and this would simply just be adding one extra protected class. So if this gets passed, it solves everything. Everything. You don't even need a religious accommodation anymore, a religious exemption, or a medical exemption. It solves everything. WeThePatriotsUSA.org, where you can sign our petition. I keep forgetting to mention the website. You can view the marathon, the 24-hour marathon we had last weekend, all of that, WeThePatriotsUSA.org.
Super quick on this. I just wanted to add that Misty, Sarah, and I are all working with the legislature here in Idaho to pass a bunch of laws that will continue to protect our rights. Because even if you can, I think this is fantastic what Dawn and Brian are trying to do, but we have a problem, which is that the mainstream medical system has a stranglehold on our country, and that needs to change. And we can change that through who knows that actually St. Luke's is the largest employer in the state of Idaho? Okay, that's the truth. And they fired everybody who wouldn't take the shot. But more importantly, we are being told that you can only achieve health by going through the medical system, and that's not correct, right? Sunshine, exercise, a happy life, taking care of ourselves, holistic medical treatments like homeopathy, naturopathy, chiropractic. These are the paths to health. Drugs, I always say this, that health doesn't come in a pill, bottle, or injection. We also have to change how we think about our health and well-being and focus on things that are actually health promoting. Our medical system is not about health. It's about medical treatments, because that's what doctors know. Now, there are lots of really well-meaning doctors. Some are represented here today, but there are also some who are just totally blind, totally oblivious to these other issues. And it's incumbent upon us to actually choose, we say vote with your forks, well, vote with your feet as well, and seek out holistic medicine that really promotes your health.
Couple of quick points. My VA doctor just last week told me he regretted getting the COVID shot. And October 21st, the director of the VA came to a DAV meeting, and he told us that of the 45 veterans that had died at the VA hospital, they all would have died anyways because they were so far gone medically. And my last point real quick, during COVID, the media heralded how 9 citizens died in Lewiston at their convalescent home, but they politely left out that they were all over 90 years old. So the news reporting media really did a terrible job, a biased job against the proper reporting of the COVID situation.
It wasn't just the media. The hospitals, St. Luke's was lying that they had no beds. The truth was they had tons of beds. My father-in-law was in the hospital, and fewer than 50% of the beds were actually occupied. But on top of that, they were lying and mislabeling people. They would apply someone who died in a motorcycle crash, apply the PCR test to them, and tell us that they died of COVID. It was a racket. We have to understand this, that you really have to dig deeper than anything that you read in the mainstream media, or better yet, just forget the mainstream media because it's not telling you the truth.
Or people like my father that were killed by the COVID shot, they just said he died from COVID. And he didn't even have COVID.
Remember they said in the movie, if you were not 4 weeks post your first shot, you were deemed unvaccinated if you died or were injured or anything by the COVID shot. The whole thing. There was a child that died, drowned in their backyard pool in Twin Falls, labeled a COVID death. This happened all over the state and all over the country.
I was wondering, the fact that you'd stated that about 1/3 of them of the vaccine batches were contaminated. It seems to fall in line with something I've heard several times, that all 3 of the mRNA vaccine companies were working in concert together, that each time one company would put out a toxic batch, the other 2 would put out basically saline solution. There were no reactions because it seemed like they were conducting a live experiment on us. And anytime a toxic batch came out, all the noise from the other 2 companies went away. And then after a few months, this one would go down and the other company would put out a toxic batch so they can see what that batch is doing. Then they would go back. This company would put one out. I don't know if you've seen that information, if you found that correlation on how toxic is my batch.
No, actually, it's not as nefarious as that. It was a phase 3 clinical trial. And in a phase 3 clinical trial, you have to have saline control, high, medium, and toxic dose. So yes, it seemed like that, but in the case of the J&J shot, and in the Modernas, in all of the 3 manufacturers of the capital M manufactured RNA, synthetic RNA, it came straight from the knowledge that the variants would recombine, and if you didn't get the second shot of the second half of the virus within 14 days, then you wouldn't get sick. And with the J&J shot, it's classic gene therapy, adenovirus vector, so it was 2 weeks after that shot. But as Dr. Cole just answered, there's considerably more a time length from that adenovirus vector situation with the J&J shot. It is classic gene therapy, and so they're very different, but there were clinical trials because the response to our 2009 XMRV paper. SARS-CoV-2 is an XMRV that's been injected in every single polio vaccine since 2004, and probably half of every one of the flu shots, SARS-CoV-2. So you're getting pathogenic priming, and so it was a large experiment, and the goal was to kill those of the injured, vaccine injured like Miste, who already had those vascular diseases. So you saw that criminal governor from Hawaii sit there, and Ron Johnson, Ron's doing such a great job. He's eviscerating these guys and laughing at them to boot. Didn't you love Jake Scott? You've been a good sport. Come on back sometime. And he just kept getting in the ego. He could not shut up. It's like, just don't go there. So that was a phase 3 clinical trial. And they got the results they wanted. Could they target the spike protein? Could they change the codons, wherever Lisa is in that Moore et al. Journal of Virology paper in 2004? And then they did the Reed et al., and both of those were parts of your government and parts of your Harvards and Germany and Beijing, China, not Wuhan. And all of this was directed and led by Fort Detrick, and the cover-up was by, the heads, John Coffin, Jonathan Stoye. Go look at who they are, and who is Tony Komaroff in New York City. And this is AIDS. This is AIDS. It always was AIDS, and HIV always was synthetic and injected in every hepatitis B shot. What's the problem? Whether you're a citizen or not, thanks to ACT UP in the 80s, and we're not advocating ACT UP, love wins. Remember, I didn't like when B stood up there at that show and said, "I'll always be angry." That's not who they are. When they got rid of the anger, and we don't live in a spirit of fear, wondering what you took and going and sitting in the papers and, well, how bad is my batch? Yeah, we have the assays, and your National Cancer Institute kept them from you, and that work was done. And the great news is Bobby Kennedy, Trump, and Ron Johnson have all of it. And they know you have all the cures, and they know I'm teaching with Michael Karlfeldt and Ryan Cole, and they're so gracious here because we don't speak the same language, and they never stop listening to me. So when we lead in love, and you don't just simply say, you're crazy. Well, I might well be crazy, but I still know molecular biology, and unfortunately, I see cells differently, and I know those spikes. And so it was a big experiment. You don't have to do that, and that's why they wanted to cover up the variation and what they're releasing at any given time. They're releasing in this year's flu shots, COVID shots, shingle shots. It's every single shot. So I want to echo what was said by Leslie is no shots ever, not one ever again. Every shot since 2009 has been a COVID shot. They had to. They were liable. It would have bankrupted our country. A disease able to affect the economies of nations. Yeah, Jonathan Stoy, Fat Boy Stoy from the UK, who had control over our blood supply and went to these meetings and lied. These are the gatekeepers of science, and that's what has to change. That people, it's not don't trust. It's that what Bobby and Ron are doing is full transparency. They're exposing them. It takes time.
My question is the shedding and putting this in a food supply and other methods to get this to the whole population. I hear a lot about this, and I think it's a real deal, but maybe you guys know more about that.
We have legislation in the works that will address that in the state of Idaho in the next session.
My wife died 4 years ago, and she was able to COVID death, and it was bogus. Dr. Ryan Cole, you and I have talked about this before. Can you point us to a resource, or just tell us what are the most effective therapies to get rid of the spike protein?
That's a great question. A Yale study came out recently showing people are still producing spike protein in their body 700 days after their last shot. So some people are spike factories potentially forever. Again, this was a gene transfection, gene therapy product. There are things that can block or bind or keep it from entering other cells. The drugs that shall not be named that have been vilified by the media, which actually do have, a pretty good effect. I could list a lot of things. I won't because there's several websites out there. Again, go to imahealth.org, go to react19.org. There are a lot of nutraceuticals and supplements that are being advertised, I think, excessively and make big money for nutraceutical companies. The short answer is I'm not sure that the people that are most affected are ever going to clear it, but you can block the effects. And we'll talk after about the other things.
I was just going to say, seek out a homeopath. Find a practicalhomeopath.com. There's Whole Health Now. Those are two different organizations, but homeopathy can heal things that are incurable. It's an amazing, the most magical medicine that we've been given by God. I raised my son exclusively on it. I've seen things that are not possible according to any other healing modality.
My question is not one of fact that you can answer. It's more of an opinion I'm asking of you. Since we have RFK Jr. and since President Nixon put out that truth recently about, oh, the vaccine companies gave me data that, and he's also obviously talking about all of you guys and Ron Johnson and whatnot, that you all have been seeing different evidence, and he put out a truth saying, I want these vaccine companies, the pharmaceutical companies, I want them to tell us the truth, good, bad, or otherwise, I want the truth. Do you guys remember that truth he put out recently? Are you hopeful that that's going to do anything, or is it just a bunch of BS and blowing smoke?
It's absolutely huge. And I was approached with Dr. Malone and a couple others a couple of years ago. Eric and Don Jr. called us and said, hey, we know there's something wrong with these. We can't get through to Dad. And we were going to go visit with him in Mar-a-Lago and ended up blocked by his chief of staff, the swamp grandma. That's Susie Wiles, for those of you that don't know her. The unfortunate aspect is she has tentacles from pharma. The fact that he posted that means there has been a big sea change shift. This is huge. And watch the ACIP committee meeting this week coming up. I think you're going to see some, I don't have inside information per se, wink, wink. You'll see some important shifts in how things are approached. I'll just put it that way. So government moves very slowly. We all know that. But the things that Bobby's been able to get done in his brief tenure without his staff in place, without the people he's wanted in place, he only has about 15% of the people he wants, have been huge. So all I can say is stay tuned and stay optimistic.
What has happened in the last 8 months is just massive. I spent some time with the secretary. Ryan and I did a month and a half, 2 months ago, and I've spent some time with some other people at HHS. They are dealing with literally, it's a war, what's going on, and they are doing everything in their power, but they're being attacked constantly. When the president posted that, that's the first time he has ever uttered anything potentially negative about Operation Warp Speed. That was a seminal moment, and I think we cannot overemphasize the importance of it. He also, you may recall that in the cabinet meeting, there was about a 12-minute exchange between the president and the secretary talking all about what's going on, and aren't you going to do a report on autism, and isn't that coming soon? And he said yes, and we have found out that 1 in 20 kids roughly has autism. It was 1 in 700,000. No, it was 0.7 per 700,000 per 100,000 in 1970. And he went on and on. My point is that the president engaged him on live television for 12 minutes to talk about these things. And then Stephen Miller and Caroline Leavitt both went out in defense of the secretary when the media was attacking him. He has a very, very, I guess the president has his back is what I would say. And we've got not only the ACIP meeting on Thursday and Friday of this week, but we've got the autism report coming out in the last week of September, I think next week. That could also be huge. So there is so much going on, and I think it's so important for each and every one of us to just keep showing our support. Call our senators and our congressperson and tell them that you support the secretary, because if you do that, it helps them know that we're paying attention. There are huge positive things coming, but it's very, very difficult because they're being fought at every single step of the way.
Just another quick comment on what Secretary Kenny, I'm sorry, I just have to call him Bobby, what Bobby has done in the last week with the communications. You see, they couldn't take direct-to-consumer advertising off the disease because it's censorship. So now they're required, the way he wrote it or the way they wrote it, I'm not good at legislation, is every single list of the symptoms, anything basically ever reported, meaning every one of those neurological symptoms. And Miste, you're going to find your disease on that list. And so they're going to have to compensate. After 5 minutes, nobody will take it. It'll take 5 minutes just to let that list roll of those neurological symptoms. It's just brilliant because, hey, we're not censoring you, but I guarantee you nobody will watch it and nobody will pay for it.
And that's what it comes down to. We have to shift public perception, which is why events like this are so important, which is why all these organizations here are so important. I was flown out to meet with President Trump last August to talk to him about these issues, and he was interested in this. I don't think he would have spent time with us meaning myself and a handful of other mothers that are activists in this country, and he wanted to hear what we had to say. Have things moved quickly enough for me? No. I've been in this for 22 years amongst all of you here who have been doing this for a very long time. It's very difficult to be patient, right? And we're seeing things move so slowly. It seems like a snail's pace for those of us who have been doing this a long time, those of us who have been injured, those of us who have lost people due to these things, not just COVID. All the shots from years and years ago, right? We don't have time for me to share my vaccine injury story from the United States Navy or what they did to my son. That's a story for another day. But the point is he was interested. He was asking questions. He wanted to know, and he wanted to know if having Bobby in that position would be the right decision. Things are changing. So it's hard to have the hope, but keep the hope, keep the faith. In the end, God wins. That's what we know 100%. I don't put my faith in any man. I don't put my faith in Trump. I don't put my faith in Bobby. I root for them because I want them to do the right thing. I applaud them when they do the right thing. I'll be the first to call them out if I feel that they're not that they care about my opinion. But Jesus is Lord and he's in control.
Amen. I am going to pull the tickets for the raffle, but before I do, Sarah, can you tell everybody here about our bills for the upcoming legislative session? Because we have some pretty amazing bills and one that everybody really needs to know about.
So we have a long list, and I'm going to try to remember them all. We are working on defending homeopathy, the practice of homeopathy in Idaho. We are working on making smart meters, making it so the people of Idaho can opt out of the smart meters. Right now, you cannot. We are working on the cloud seeding issue, and I won't get into it, but a lot of people don't realize the difference between cloud seeding and geoengineering, and that's a whole section of state law versus federal law. So anyway, we're working on that. Yes, the big one. I'm saving this for the end. We are working on family court reform in Idaho. We all know we have a major problem with CPS. Yes.
Digital Rights Act.
Yes, the Digital Rights
Labeling of all foods laced with any kind of vaccinations.
Yes, any mRNA foods. And then the big one, my favorite one, the one that has been in my head and in my heart and came straight from God for many years ago. So we have worked for years and years to make Idaho's exemptions as strong as they can possibly be. And the logical next step now is to go straight after that mandate. We're going to get rid of all mandates. No more shots for our kids to go to schools, daycares, anywhere. So we got the Medical Freedom Act done, which covers our adults, but the Medical Freedom Act did not fix it for our school and daycare mandates. And so that bill is almost done being drafted. Finishing final perfect touches are being put on it. It's headed to LSO. And we need every single one of you, if you can show up in those committee hearing rooms, even if you don't want to speak, just to have you sitting there shows our committees that the people are engaged and that we want this and that the people are done with this garbage of co-parenting with government. And we are not going to have it anymore.
Woo! Yes!
So everybody knows the Medical Freedom Act references we did not attack the mandate for schools because they're already effectively voluntary in the state of Idaho. This will actually just completely get rid of it so that no one in Idaho can be forced to take any kind of a medical intervention for any reason in order to live a normal life. That's where we want to go, because nobody knows your medical history, nobody knows what's best for you, and nobody has to live with the consequences of your medical choices. No one has the moral authority to tell you what to put in your body, full stop, and we are going to fix that in Idaho. We're going to beat Florida to the punch.
You already did.
I know we
You
did.
already did. The medical, Idaho medical, I'm just going to, you know what? I don't do this often. I'm going to publicly correct her. Her bill is better than what she said it was. Your bill, it already says, from my legal interpretation, that no school can deny admission to a student on the basis of we did it before Florida. And when people have been posting, this really pisses me off. I'm sorry. Because when people, there's a reason I moved here instead of Florida. I'm from the East Coast. I'm from New England, all right? You'll hear it in my voice now that I'm starting to get, a little bit worked up here, all right? I'm from Boston area. Okay, listen, here's the thing, all right? When people are posting online that Florida did this first, I love Florida, but they did not do it first. We did it first, and the only reason we didn't get the attention is that we deserve is that we have Brad Little as our governor instead of Ron DeSantis. All right? She did it. Don't let her fool you. You did it. Miste, you did it.
Ron DeSantis was actually here and applauding the legislature for passing my bill, the Idaho Medical Freedom Act, and Brad Little sat there with his arms crossed and 5 days later vetoed the bill. That's what really happened. But let me tell you, I'm so happy because Florida Surgeon General, Dr. Joe Ladapo, who is one of the sweetest human beings you'll ever meet in your whole life, is using the same language that I talk about, that we have the moral authority, that nobody gets to tell us what to put in our bodies. And I will support him all the way, and Governor DeSantis, because they're trying to do the right thing, and they're just going to make it easier for us in Idaho and our legislature to do the right thing, to fully remove 39-4801 to 4, I think, right, Sarah? Basically amend those so that there's nothing on this in statute anymore that applies to children at all, just like all adults are free. We did it first. We're going to beat them on this next little piece.
Be prepared for traffic to get worse. They're all coming.
Bree, I have a question for you. Did you ever lose it on that Dr. Mark alien face?
So I'm a preschool teacher, but I am a sailor when it comes to Peter Marks. But my husband would take the day off work and he would seriously be sitting right there next to me on the table every single time we met with Peter Marks. And you can hear it in the edits. And he's sitting there like writing things down because he's a chemist. And so his brain's this big and mine's this big. And so he would just be writing things out. And you can hear his finger. He's like, tell him this. So, but in the end of the day, with all of us here, we all understand that injustice happens all the time. There's evil in the world and there's good in the world. And obviously COVID did us all a huge favor, and it exposed exactly where the evil is hiding. And it shined a big, bright spotlight on that. With Doug and everybody here, it's crazy to think that we don't need to function in fear. We know what was binding and what is binding so many of our fellow Americans with this deceit and the propaganda and the hate. But if we lead in love, anything is possible. And that's something that you guys are incredibly blessed to have here with this leadership here in Idaho. Just march forward without fear, lead with faith, and lead with love, and we will win.
Excuse me, how can people share the movie?
So you can go to followthesilence.com. It's free for anyone. So you can text this thing to all of your favorite people that don't like to talk about this stuff. Yes. Everybody, it's free. There's no reason for people not to watch it. There's a whole bunch of people that are thinking that this movie is exactly the language that Donald Trump will be able to understand this issue. So there's a whole team trying to get him to watch it as well. You can find it anywhere on YouTube. Brett Weinstein has it on his channel, Rec 19. We have it on our channel too. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Does the Nuremberg Code, does it carry any weight as far as informed consent, lack thereof? Or is it just a code, kind of a moral ethic, but doesn't have any legal standing, or does it?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the United States never adopted the Nuremberg Code as any kind of formal. They didn't sign on as a treaty or anything like that. It never got incorporated into U.S. law. I can't tell you how many thousands of calls, messages we fielded, but I would tell them, no, we can't sue under that. We're not going to have Nuremberg 2.0. We're not going to have public hangings, Anthony Fauci, anything like that. I said, that's not going to happen. And the people that were saying it was going to happen made quite a bit of money. They made millions of dollars off of this. I'm not going to name names. She was one that wouldn't. Okay. And I have a lot of respect for her because of that. But we wouldn't. We told people the truth rather than what they wanted to hear. So I told people, no, you're not going to get that kind of recovery. But here's what we can do. And then they just shut me down most of the time because the Nuremberg people, that's all they wanted. They were out for blood. And I get it. I get it, because when I watch a movie like this and I have to look at you, tell your story, I almost have to look away from the screen. And I did once during the movie, I'll admit it. But everybody needs to look at them. Okay? And this is all I'm going to say because I wanted to close with this anyway. So thank you for asking me a question because it gave me an excuse to come up here and didn't look like I was just hogging the mic, which I really was. I want to thank you for continuing to use your voice, for your bravery, for your voice, for continuing to speak truth. I'm looking at you too. But most of all, I want to thank you for staying. Because that was the hardest thing to watch in that movie. Thank you for staying.
Thank you so much to all the organizations and the heroes that came for the Q&A. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you so much, everyone out there who came to the movie and supported it. God bless you all.